Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Welcome back. It is week 3 of the 1000 scale Galaxy class Enterprise, and we are getting into the world, the wild, wonderful world of tiny, tiny windows. And that's the whole reason why this ship is cast in clear, so that you can light up the windows. There are many, numerous sizes of windows on this ship. There are squatty ones, there are a little bit longer ones, there are long and skinny windows, there are square windows, round windows, God knows how many types of windows. And no, you should never light them all up at the same time. It looks like a cheap modeling trick if you do that. Plus, it looks like, you know, every cabin on every deck of the whole ship has got tanning beds going on when they light them up so darn bright that you have to look away. Now, it is true that the Galaxy class was known for having all of those windows around the front saucer. And again, these windows, the long elongated oval windows in the secondary hull. But there's no reason why you would ever light them all up. So you can handle the window masking one of two ways. You can mask them all and then decide later which ones you want to have remain lit, or you can decide up front which windows you want to have lit and only mask those off. I think once you get into putting all of these tiny masks down, you will decide to do that. You will decide which windows you want to mask and only mask those ones, and then just paint in the other ones when time comes to do it. It's what I'm going to do. I'm certainly going to give you enough masks to have masks to spare. And yes, it's a drinking game. Every time I say the word masks, you must take a shot. Here's the thing. Cutting something this small on a plotter is a fool's errand at best. People have seemed to like the idea that they're getting a inside of my thought processes, and I'll say strap in, because you're going to get another video like that this week. Here's what happens when you try to plot a lot of round ovals. See, they all go out of focus to begin with. Come on, back in focus before everything goes wonky. Now see, those are the tiniest windows, and you can see that they don't want to plot. They're deformed, they come up off of the backing, and all of that. Now you ask yourself, why are you asking me? Why am I using black and not the yellow that I normally use? Well, yellow is a lower tack vinyl, which means the adhesive on the back of it is less sticky than the black. Black is more sticky. It's meant to stick down, so it's got more adhesive on it. When something is this small, you need all the adhesive you can get. Plus, since these are only masking the clear, there's no risk of them pulling up any paint underneath, because there's not going to be any paint underneath. So that's the reason for that. But I have found when I try to go oval, because these windows all have rounded corners on them, when I try to go oval that small, bad things happen. When I try to cut them as squares, they behave very nicely, because I am making a series of straight lines and then intersecting lines. I'm not trying to make the knife on the plotter draw a circle and then draw another circle and then draw another circle. It's not doing this. It's going and that it likes doing that a lot better. Things just go to nuts when I try to cut, especially a large number of these. I have found, however, it will do the largest windows, which are these ones right here. It will plot the largest windows cleanly, and those are the ones that are going to be in the top, are going to be in the saucer, top and bottom of the saucer. It will do those long ovals. Well, it's easier to see it on the paper. It will plot those. So I am going to be providing those long oval windows for the most noticeable spots, which are on the upper saucer, and are up on the saucer, upper and lower. But when we get down to the secondary hull, we will be cutting. See, here's the difference. I can show you side by side. And at this scale, the difference doesn't make that much of a difference. There is a round cut window next to a square cut window. Square cut windows work. Round cut windows I have a real high failure rate on. So I'm going to be doing square cut windows, even though the depressions in the hull are rounded. See, there's a square window over a round hole. So that's I think the best way to split the difference here. On the windows that are going to be masked, and again, like I said, not all of them are. You can pick and choose which windows you want to have open. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be doing the squared off edges. Now, it's also true that when you are painting this, it will be possible to do all of your painting, paint all of ship the happy colors that you want to paint it, and then go back in with an X-Acto or a pick. If you have a dental pick, let me see if I can find a good dental pick to give you an example. Here, a good dental pick. And you can go back in and simply scrape the paint off here. And that's the way the big boys do it too. The professional vinyl makers, they also will go back in and scratch paint off of areas to show you the light coming through. When you light up the whole thing, any place you scratch, you're going to see that light through. So that's also a very viable method. If you don't want to use these window masks at all, for the small ones, I would still use them for the large windows, but for the small ones, you can go back in and scratch them out. But so that's what I'm doing today. I am getting the right sizes and the right heights, because there's several different heights of windows on the ship. I'm getting all that set up so that I can put the window mask down and maybe even get some primer down. Wouldn't that be fun? Anything to avoid getting to work on these. I'm lazy, I know. The windows to me were easier to start on today than getting these shapes done, but I really need to because I want to glue them to this week. That's going to be the first major bits of construction, and I'm really looking forward to it. Good morning and welcome back. It is Tuesday. Tuesday means several things around here. Tuesday usually means it's Best Buy day. That's the day I go out to Best Buy and see what new Blu-rays have come out. Today is also very important that it is voting day. It's midterm election day for those of us here in the United States. And all you international folks, you don't know how lucky you are to not have to put up with this kind of nonsense. But I hope everybody went out and voted. Obviously, it's too late to encourage you now because you're watching this after the fact and you're either very happy with the results or you're very sad. And either way, I think we can all agree it's, time to build models. Today, because this was getting really just tiresome yesterday, I spent a lot of time just calculating lengths of windows, and they're not nearly as many all uniform size windows as you think they are. There are quite a variation in them. And I'm pondering what to do about this neck. I really am, because these smaller windows, there's almost not enough oomph. There's not enough material either in the vinyl or on the adhesive on the back to make those work. And I think what I really think I'm going to do is simply recommend that these be painted over and then scratched out with a sharp implement to unblock the light from the unblock the light from the ones that you want to have lit. I just don't see now these long ones. Yeah, that's no problem. These short guys, it's just an exercise in frustration to try to put all those tiny masks down. So I'm going to try it, maybe do one side here and paint it, and do a mock-up and see whether scratching nose is going to be the way to go or not. And I have a feeling it's going to be. But also something else that needs to be addressed with this kit, and Dawn, if you're watching, please see what you can do about this in your future castings. But in this neck, you have the impulse engine for the battle bridge, or for the battle section, which is this guy right here. It's lit in every incarnation when they use the impulse engines, but it is difficult to get to because of the way this thing is cast. What I need to do is I need to channel out two U-shaped shapes right here to put the 1.5 mil red LED in there. I'm basically just going to scoop out some there, much like I did here, to make room for the reinforcing rod and the pylons. But I'm going to have to do something here, and that may be something in your future castings if you want to go ahead and include those little dips in there. I think it would save modelers a lot of time, and they would be very grateful for you for doing that. But again, this is the kind of stuff I want to do while the piece is out, because I'm getting ready. I think what I want to do is go ahead and glue this in, fiberglass this in to the bottom of the saucer, or join those up, and then this will be the joint. This to this will be the joint that happens last. And because it's got that copper reinforcing pipe in there, it's not really, it just has to meet up. There's not going to be like there's a lot of weight that's going to be hanging off of that joint. So let's get back to doing some drilling out here, and then we can go back into the monotonous windows. Okay, so the secret is, or the thing you got to watch out for, is you don't make anything so deep that it's going to come out the other side and you're already creating light blocking issues here, because this is clear and will transmit light very well. So you got to be careful. But when you do this just right and you get the bulbs lined up, you get a nicely lit impulse engine here. And then I can just pour some of the light blocking two-part epoxy, the JB Weld. I can pour that over that, and then you'll only get the light central, narrowly casted. See, here's where you run into trouble with the light shining up through the top. So you've got to do a good amount of light blocking there too. I think I might want to paint the inside of this with slick or something, so that light is only shining out. Light is only shining out through this back here, and not the rest of the channel. So trying to corral the light is as important as trying to get it to show up where you want it. Let me clean off this dust. I thought I was done, but it pulled me back in as far as getting resin dust over everything. So let me clean up. I'm going to try an experiment this morning, because these windows are kicking my butt. I'm going to put in some windows that are masks on this side. I'm going to spray this with a primer to see what happens when I go in and pick out windows with a sharp object, a pointed stick. If I go in here with a pointed stick, am I going to be able to get the windows cleaned out the way I want? If that's true, if it works, if I'm happy with it, then what I'm going to do is simply recommend that to be the stated course, and then I could stop worrying about trying to make these tiny windows work and get back onto the bigger parts, because I think I'm losing too much time trying to fret over the details of these tiny small windows when a simpler solution might be at hand. So let me put some primer on this. I mask off the areas that I don't really need to get paint on for the time being. I'm really only interested in this bank of windows. So let's do that, and then once I get those results reported, then I'll know the course of the rest of the day's progress, or hoping progress. Okay, I have a light coat of primer on the side of the hull here, and I may hit it once more with the primer before I do any top coating, because it's giving me a real true picture of how much light blocking these things are really going to need. You know, it's something you need to know. Is it going to take 2 coats? Is it going to take 3 coats? I don't want to put it on too heavy, because primer paint, particularly on resin, even though I have scrubbed this with a nice brush and everything to get the casting resin, or get the casting okay, I've got the first primer coat on here. We're gonna let this dry and maybe put another primer coat over it, and then a couple of top coats of color. This is also a good test to see how much paint is actually going to take to light block this beastie, because these the third time, and we're going to try it. Okay, I've just come back from putting the first primer coat on the test neck here. And we're gonna have to put maybe another coat of primer over this. I didn't want to put too much paint down the first time because particularly on cast resins, even though I have scrubbed this to within an inch of its life, sometimes you get that little fisheye stuff going on if you put the paint on too heavy. So I want to give this a nice light coat, and then I'll give it one more. I'll do it my typical model building painting regiment is, which is a couple of light coats of light blocking, couple of coats of paint, and then we're really going to be able to tell how much light blocking this ship is actually going to need. I have a feeling it's going to be more than I'm anticipating, because the whole bloody thing is clear. So just from seeing through it, I can tell that's hardly any light. It's providing hardly any light blocking at all, just with this one coat. So that'll give us a better idea. I'll put on, like I said, I'll do another coat, another pass with the primer. I'll put on a first coat of top coat color, and this will also give me a chance to try out which colors of blues and grays I'm going to be using, and do the 2 coats of paint and see if that's going to be enough. Because if that's not going to be enough to light block efficiently, then we got to come up with some sort of plan B in like a quick hurry. So let that paint dry. And I'm testing, in other news, I'm testing the wiring here. I've got run through this channel to make sure that there are no shorts and everything is happy. Both circuits seem to be working there. So I'll do that for both nacelles. Oh nuts, I've already covered it up with tape, but I did a little bit of light blocking inside where the impulse engine is here, and I painted the inside of that cavity with some tulip. Seems to work pretty good. So that'll help direct the red light that's going to come out of the back of that. And I'm getting down and serious to the point where I'm hopefully getting ready to put these guys, join these to the base. Now I need to work out the last bit of I've been a bit cowardly on it. I need to go ahead and plot out the patterns here. They're not really an Aztek, but the patterns that go here for the plating, and get myself happy with that. And once that's happy, I can go ahead and join it to. I got to pick a half. It's either going to be the top half or the bottom half, and haven't decided which is going to be the most practical. I think it's going to be more practical to join everything to the top here, and then glue all that in, join it all up, make sure it's nice and flat, and then put the bottom plate on it. But I can also see a good argument for joining everything to this plate, making it nice and secure, and then adding the top to it. So it's, the more I think about it, the more I think that I want to be able to do this. And what that gets me is I can put this and then add the nacelle on it, and I can get away from the camera here. If I do all of this, then I can level this off on the post, and then go ahead and secure that post, and then I will know this post on the stand is flat, level, and square, and that will help me in the rest of the building. So I think that's the way I want to go. I need some convincing. So I'm just going to have to walk around, scratch my head, and then come back to it. So to get further to that goal, I need to go ahead and plot the patterns for the pylons. Here you can see I've kind of done it on this one. I just need to make myself happy with these patterns, and then I can make a good stab at getting them glued down, because my goal for this week is to get these guys attached and leveled off and ready to go, which includes getting it on the post. So that will be a good and admirable goal. Let's see if we can achieve it. Okay, back to the neck in progress. The primer coats have dried. I've gone with a coat of the, this looks like Lynn Gray, which is a bluish gray. Fairly heavy, fairly dark. We'll see how well it will mask the lighting. I see a problem that I hope is not going to be too bad, and that is, yes, the windows are indented. They should be. These panel lines, these grid lines, they may also transfer light and need to be blocked. It's not so bad, but there are parts where I can't obviously paint behind them because of how thick this is cast. And that may be an issue. That may end up being an issue. So we will keep you apprised. But in the meantime, I am starting to work on the nacelle templates. Okay, it's a little bit later in the day. I was looking for the right color of paint, and I got sidetracked and ended up cleaning out my acrylic paint box, getting rid of all the ones that were dried up or too gloppy to use, or you know, you have 4 or 5 open jars of gold gray, and you gotta condense them into, you know, 2 open jars. It's like, I don't know why I just go out and open another jar without checking, but that kind of stuff. So I've got some sample masks laid down on this part of the paint, and now that I've got the substitute for the gold, or the duck egg blue I was looking for, which is Model Master Hellblau, which is a nice bluish green. I'm gonna put some of this in the brush and spray it on and see how well it goes. Okay, now I've got the blau on there, the Hellblau, Hellblau. My German is not good, but I've got the, see if we get this under the light just right, the bluish green on there, and I'm going to let this dry. Now this is the Model Master acrylic, which is a lot more rubbery than the Tamiya stuff, so I'm going to let that go because I know it needs to dry a little bit longer. You need to leave that sit a little bit longer than regular Tamiya. So while I'm doing that, while that is sitting, but a reason I use this, A, is because I had it, and B, I don't think Tamiya makes a duck egg blue, and C, it's got a good coverage. It'll help with the light blocking. So all this happens, pull this back, all this is happening, let that dry, and then I'll pull the mask off so A, you can see how they start to look, but then I also will go in and test the light blocking and see how effective that is, and then go in and see how easy it's going to be to scrape the windows clean. I'm still counting on that. I do have a few of them masked here and there so I can see how those look. So really it's just a test case for a lot of things. Okay, I think I've got a little bit of a result to show you. Pay no attention to the man behind the screen. Now pay no attention to these colors per se, or the fact that the templates don't exactly line up on the grid lines like they will when I am taking my sweet time and doing it correctly. I had a couple little of the cutout vinyl masks stuck down there, and I plucked those off, and when you put the light into it, you can see, I might want to zoom in on this. Let me see, hold the phone. Let me get a place where I can zoom in. There you go. Okay, you can see the windows. Now, that's what it looks like with the light behind it. That works fine. But let me go in, and also the nice thing is it's blocking the light. That amount of paint does block it sufficiently. But let me go in with the dental tool and see if I can scratch open a bunch of these. Okay, I'm getting mixed results, and I think I know what part of the problem is, but when I go to start scraping, this works out very well. Again, I'm trying to do this upside down and backwards. Let me turn off this overhead light. Yeah, maybe you can see that better. Okay. That's not bad. That's not too shabby. The problem is that it doesn't want to come off when I'm scraping. It does not want to come off very cleanly or smoothly. And I'm thinking maybe what needs to happen, there's the lights inside. What needs to happen is I just need to maybe let this paint dry overnight and come back to it. Maybe it's still a little bit too fragile. Let it harden up a little bit, I think. But, you know, it's a mixture of trying to find the right tool. Been using this. Come on, where's my lens? Trying to do upside down and backwards is not easy. Let me try this. Okay, it's a little bit better. But using this tool to just go in and open up those windows is giving me good results, but you got to be awfully careful not to scratch where you don't want a window, because you will get a window if you are not careful. Let me just open up one right here. And, you know, some of that you can work with the X-Acto. If the tip is broken off just a tiny bit, you finally have a use for your broken tipped X-Actos. You can put load one back up and use that instead. But yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad at all. The good news is, the really good news is the amount of paint to completely light block this is back out again. The amount of paint needed to light block these is not more. It's not more than your normal model. That's 2 light coats of primer, a 1 coat of dark gray, the coat of the bluish duck egg blue, and then when you think about coming back with a light, almost a white accent here or there, you will still, I mean, that is plenty to do the light blocking, and you're still able to scrape through it. So now that I know the small windows can be mostly handled by just simply scribing the paint back off, I think I can concentrate on the larger windows and cutting those in vinyl and being done with it that way. So good news all around. Okay, I think the final report on this is going to be it'll work if you have the right shaped tool. I'm going around with various picks and X-Acto knives, trying to find the one that's giving me the best results. I think it will work if you find the right one. They're not coming out very cleanly, but that just could be a matter of, you know, getting better with practice. I do think it's going to give you a better result in the end than trying to put all of those tiny pieces of vinyl down. I think that's just going to be a better result in the end. So I think that's the way we're gonna go with it. So next thing I need to do now is to strip the paint off of this and get it ready for doing some construction. Won't that be fun? Voila, nice and clean. Hard to believe. Well, easy to believe when you consider that the paint wasn't on for all that long, and I got it into the Power Purple stuff and cleaned it right off. Now you can still see a little bit of aftermath, but that's fine. That's going to be covered up with primer anyway. Hello and welcome back. I know it's been a while. I'm sorry, I had an order to take care of today, but I've got the jig out, and that can only mean one thing: progress is afoot. It's at this rate, it's maybe 3 toes, because like I said, things have been going slow this week. But I've determined this is going to be the best way, I feel, to get everything kind of start to get built up. What I've done is taken a good old piece of the MDF that it's off of the same blank that I used on the Reliant nacelle jig alignment thingy. And because I can determine that the bottom of the ship should basically be flat. It should be flat, Now this is where it's running off of the edge, because that's where the undercut curves ends. But this back part, in order to make sure that try to turn this way, try to make sure that this base and these two the two pylons are held flat and in the same orientation. Just basically clamped them down to this board. It's kind of pushed everything together. Now what I'm going to be doing is just some basic gluing or epoxying just right in here. So I do these spots here. I don't want to splash it too far over where the top is, because I'm not prepared to do this yet. If I were prepared to do this, then I could lay in a whole bunch more of the glue, but that's not my goal for right now, because I still have, the only thing that's stopping me from doing that really is I need to run the tiny wires for the running lights that are going to be here, top and bottom. I can close this up pretty much and still be able to get into it to put my lighting down, but that's another thing to be coming. I still also want to put the copper part right in here first before I can close this up, because I want to be able to get to that. So enough of that jammering. So really all I need to do is just put in a little bit of, mix up a little bit of epoxy, put it in just in these spots, and just get very close. I might run some very thin CA just down that joint. So let's get on with that. Good morning and welcome back. It is Friday. I'm not going to say it. There. So this was sitting up overnight. This contraption might look familiar to you. It was sitting up overnight. So let's take the clamps off and see how we did. Clamps are off of there. Clamps are off of here. And there we go. Nice, solid, level. Doesn't seem to want to buckle or bow. Looks good. I can go ahead and take these masks off because I'm going to put newer, better ones on. But the next thing I can do, now that I've got this, is I kind of slid this in place. And what I want to do is sit it on the stand as it will be. There you go. This is obviously not the final base, but it's a mock-up base. So what I want to do is I want to level. I might need to do this. Okay, get a little bit of height out of it. What I want to do is level this off so that it's sitting flat, square, and copacetic. So if I put a level on it, I see that it needs to be twisted this way. That's level from the front. It is level at the back. Now is it level front to back? No, front to back it needs to come up a little bit more. That side, well, that side looks pretty good. Needs to come up a little bit more, actually a bit back a little bit more. There you go. That one's level. That's level. Now, the one great conceit I am taking in all of this is that this piece is flat and level, and it seems to be. So if I make that level with the earth, then it should be in good shape. Okay, so we've got that. Now I got bracket side to side. And that's back level side to side. Okay, there's that. Oh, now that threw it back out of whack. See, this is the thing. I need to, there we go, pull that back. Because what I want to do is I want to epoxy around the bottom of this. Simply epoxy around the bottom of it. That will lock that in position. But what it will do, even more than that, is it will give me a good level area for this, so that when I put this joint, or when I put the top and the neck on, I know that the rest of it should be level. This is like, if you look at the side view of the Enterprise, this is like the one true flat line. In the midst of all of the curves and wackadoos on the Enterprise D, this line should be parallel to the center of the saucer. Those are the two, really only two parallel lines. So that looks good. That looks better on that side. But the more I play with this, the more rounded out that hole gets. That's why I want to take care of it pretty much once and for all and be done. Okay, that looks good. Okay, that's good. Okay, now everything's good. Before I get a chance to mess anything up, I want to put a bead of epoxy around there. Okay, here you can see a little dam I made, a little box around this base, and I've filled it up about halfway with epoxy. I'm trying to make a good solid block of epoxy there that will keep the post in place. I don't expect this post or this area right here to take up a lot of weight. It's basically to keep it in place. The weight is, well, let me zoom back out because you can't see my hand when I do that. I'm presuming that the weight is going to be out here. It's going to be where this continues and goes out to the oval. That is where all of the weight of the ship is going to sit, because once that oval is epoxied into the bottom of the saucer, and that saucer is glued to the neck, and the neck sits on top here, it's kind of, all of that weight's going to be hanging off of the top. I really don't see this doing a lot of, other than holding it in place and keeping it level, I don't see it doing a lot of the holding up of the bottom. You know, maybe I could put some sort of reinforcement over here to bridge that, but I don't know exactly how much of that I'll end up needing. That's an experiment for a later day, I think. But right now I've just got some weight on this to kind of hold that bubble level, and letting this set up, and see if come back in a few hours and see how well it's held up. The next thing to do that I'm thinking of doing is epoxying. I have to go out and get the fiberglass because I haven't gotten the fiberglass yet. Was to epoxy the neck into the bottom of the saucer, but that may be jumping the gun. I was thinking, you know, as you do, you're pondering things when it comes to you, and, you know, in the middle of the night you get an idea. But I'm thinking, I want to put this thing down, but I can't really do that until I have come up with some sort of box or channel or something in here that I can attach the lighting for the windows for the secondary hull. And then what am I going to do about the deflector? I have completely neglected. It's a neglector. It's not a deflector. It's a neglector, because I have been neglecting thinking about how I'm going to light that and how I'm going to contain the light from that, from going everywhere else, because it wants to have a blue LED strip come out of it, or to shine from the back of it, and I don't want those blue lights to shine out the regular windows. So I've got to put some sort of cowl, I guess, or some sort over top of this to keep it from spilling the blue light, unless I just decide to tint it blue and use white lights. That way I don't have to worry about contaminating the white lights of the windows. But then you don't get as good of a blue light out of it as you could if you were using actual blue LEDs. So that has jumped up to the front of the list of things to ponder. And while all this is going on, I am also working on the Aztek design for the bottom of the saucer, because, like I said, I want to put this neck into it, and they can't really do that until I'm done manhandling the bottom of the saucer. Let's see, where else are we? The nacelles are ready to go on there. I can actually do that gluing, and I think I'm going to do that before the end of the day. I'm going to at least glue the bottom, epoxy the bottom of the saucer, or bottom of the nacelles onto the pylons. Get those in position. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Later. Well, this was quite unexpected and always very welcome. I got mail call today, and I got the best kind of mail call, the mail call that you don't expect. I have always been a child who is sent away for things, so I sit feverishly waiting by the mailbox for things to show up, so that when things come out of the blue, it's even so much better. And my good friend Eliot Brown, friend of the show, Good Egg, he has sent me something because he saw that I was in need. And this is what it is. Now, I won't be able to talk once it's on, but take a look.
Yes, I can now spray. I gotta subtitle this. I can now spray and breathe at the same time. Eliot, thank you so much. It's even fashionable.
It's even fashionable. It's got the lovely Transformer colors on it if you want to go there. Trying to learn how to take this on and put this on and off at the same time. It's got the nice adjustable straps. And let's see, for the time, there you go, it's off. And it's got the lovely pink filters. Thank you, Eliot. This could not have been cheap, so please let me know what I owe you, and I'll be happy to PayPal you out the funds immediately. But that is going to come in so handy, especially as the weather is starting to turn foul and more stuff needs to be done indoors. I can put that on and flip the exhaust fan on and get so much more done. But thank you, Eliot. Eliot Brown, like I say, friend of the show, Good Egg, and probably extender of my life. So the rest of the things I do, it's on you, Eliot. It's on you. So thank you. And I am back to working on the computer screen now, which is, like I said, not fun to watch. But I am continuing to map out the Aztecs for the bottom of the saucer. Okay, I'm out here on the dining room table because this is about the only good place where I can work on something this big without having to just tear up everything that's on my workspace. So what I've got here is the last bit of big gluing or adhesing or melding that I'm going to do today, and that is the neck to the bottom saucer. I'm confident that I've got all of the measurements off of the bottom saucer that I need. And also that I am done with the neck pieces that I need. I can still work with this as a unit. So what I've gone and done is I've used the metal tape to tape this edge to keep it all nice and level and even. And this is that flange I was talking about a week or so ago. That if this part here had a flange underneath it built in, then this would be a lot easier to set in place. So what I've got is this big old gap that I knew I was going to have, but since that's where the saucer separates, it's not like it needs to be completely seamless. What I'm going to do now that I've got these two taped together and in the right orientation to each other is I am just going to run some 1-minute epoxy down this trench. I've got it dammed up on both ends so that it won't pour out. But what I'm going to do is dam this up, put the epoxy in here, let it set up at least overnight, even though it's 1-minute epoxy. You really should let it go for longer than that. And then when that's done, I'm going to flip it over, take this tape off of it, and then run a sheet or some fiberglass patching on the inside so that I can still use the clear aspects, even though this area here and this area over here has no windows in it, and I would be good to leave the foil tape on to light block it. I am still going to fiberglass over top of it. So there, let me pour this in. Okay, I ran a bead through there and tried to fill in that gap, and now it's trying to, and once it sets up, it's expanding a bit and it's coming up over, which is easy enough to cut with a sharp blade. We're going to let that sit for a good long while. Okay, this unwieldy bunch of hardware is me trying to make sure that the spot of the neck is flat and level with the joint of the saucer there. We're good up at this point. There's going to be some sanding that needs to happen here to get that down and nice and level. That's to be expected. It's actually very good for a resin kit to be that close. I'm very happy with that. But this also means I want this to set up at least overnight. So it's a good thing it's Friday, because I can let this set up over the entire weekend and come back to it next week and resume work on it. Because like I said, it's going to take some elbow grease to get that down and nice and flat and level. Over here we see something very similar. This is drying in or curing in very nicely, but I also would like to leave it for the weekend. I have taken this off and proved that it's flat and everything's happy, but there's no sense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with letting it cure even longer. So we'll let that set up completely over the weekend, and it'll be even stronger when we come out of the other side of it. So this is all setting. This is all going to be, leave it alone and walk away type of stuff. And while this is happening, I can be working on the templates on the computer, which means I don't have to touch any of this. And here you can see on the screen I am where I have taped the under the lower saucer, and now I'm going in and tracing over that and drawing in the hull sections. Once the hull sections are drawn in, I will cut those and match them to the actual ship, and then once I'm happy with how they match up, I can go back in and draw in the designs to make that work. So there you go. Let me see if we get over onto the other page. You can see these are the areas that I'm happy with, that I have gotten done. That's the top of the top of secondary hull, top of the pylons, sides of the neck, back of the neck, underside of the neck. This is the underside of the pylons and the underside of the secondary hull. Here you can see some of the work I've done on the parts for the nacelles. And so things are coming along pretty quickly. Okay, as we're getting ready to close down for Friday afternoon and indeed for the week, I want to let you know that I just spent, a good hour of a very enlightening conversation, and I used that pun correctly. Enlightening conversation with Ralph at Tenna Controls, coming up with the lighting plan for this beastie. And because there's not a lot on the Galaxy Class 2 light. I mean, there's windows, obviously, ton of windows, scads of windows, but other than the strobes, there's not really a lot of activity. It doesn't have the big hurly-burly on the front of the nacelles or anything like that. So we were trying to figure out a plan. I'm gonna, again, like I did with the Reliant, not with the Reliant, with the Franklin that I worked on with him, doing something with the remote so I don't have a bunch of switches in a base and all that kind of stuff. And we've got one idea up our sleeves that I think is going to be fun, and I will give you one slight visual hint of it right now. Okay, here's the one quick visual hint. No, it's not a Cylon. We're going to try to do something fun with this phaser strip to give it a little bit of life and some motion. And that looks like that's where we're going to wrap up for this week. So things are starting to come together. Very good first test on the painting. Really answered a lot of questions as far as how many coats of paint it's going to take. Started doing some gluing. Started getting the resin glued together. Making bigger pieces out of smaller pieces, which is always fun, and making great leaps on the templates. So until next week, when we continue at this mad pace, y'all be good to each other, and we'll see you here next time.